happy Halloween, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I planned kind of a spooky video for you guys today. I found a horror movie tier list where we got like over 50 kind of scary movies on it. Before I get started, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Let's get right to the tier list. All right, before I get started, I want you guys to go down to the comments and leave your like top 3 horror movies or top 3 Halloween movies that you guys like to watch every year. But I'm gonna try to go fast because as I said, we got like over 50 movies. But I'm gonna talk about them for a little bit, give my short thoughts on them. But we got the amazing tier, the great tier, the good tier, the okay tier, the bad tier, and the terrible tier. Hopefully we don't get too many terrible movies. First up, we got Scream 3. I did a Scream kind of watch along. I try to do one at least every year to get ready for the newest one, but Scream 3 is just one that I don't like at all. I feel like the mystery just isn't as good as all the other ones, and it kind of is a little confusing, and the killer just isn't great. I think it's the worst killer in the whole franchise, and I think it just was a massive step down from 2, but then Scream 4 is a massive step up from Scream 3. I'm kind of deciding if I want to put it in the okay tier or the bad tier. I really don't like it and I despise it. I always want to skip it on my Scream watch along, so I'm going to put Scream 3 in the bad tier. Next up, we got Bones and All. This one just came out, I think, last year, so I think this tier list is kind of like a newer tier list, which is okay. Bones and All, I had a lot of like fun with, even though it's not really like a fun movie. But I really like Timothée Chalamet in this. I thought he did a really great job. And Mark Rylance, he just plays really creepy characters, and he was really creepy in this. Taylor Russell, she was great in this. And I just loved the whole story of it. It almost kind of had a happy ending at the end. We were kind of tricked with that, but then it just goes really dark because Mark Rylance comes back into the picture. But yeah, I feel like this one, its cinematography was really good, and the script was also really good. So Bones and All, it's going in the great tier. Next up, we got Nope. The first time I actually watched Nope, I wasn't that blown away by it, but when I watched it a second and third time, I was kind of blown away by all the themes that I missed in every single little detail, because Jordan Peele makes those details and themes for you to go back and watch it like 2 or 3 more times. And I was kind of like, I like it after the first time, but after the second and third time, I was like, oh my goodness, Jordan Peele's onto something. I think that this is easily my second favorite Jordan Peele movie. I think Us is a step down from this, but Get Out is easily one of the best horror movies. But Nope is such a cool original idea with like just this cloud, but it's actually like a whole on alien like animal. It's so interesting, and it has some of the scariest scenes, like I think when the alien is eating all the people and you see it like digest them all. That is one of the scariest scenes I think I've ever seen. And then you have Gordy. I've always envisioned like just befriending a monkey, and then they just go ape shit on you, and that just terrifies me. And the sound effects during that scene are absolutely terrifying. I do not want that to happen to me. But Nope is an amazing movie, going in the amazing tier. Scream 1. What do I gotta say about Scream 1? It's one of the best slasher films, one of the best horror movies of all time, in my opinion. It's literally infinitely rewatchable. You can find so many different things, and the cast is stellar. I just love the scares so much. And it's overall, even though it's a slasher and kind of a horror, it's a really fun film, and you have a really good time. It's a very short film. It's paced very well. There's not much to say. Scream's going in the amazing tier. Next up, we have A Quiet Place. This is the first one. When I first watched this, I was blown away. John Krasinski directed the first one and the second one, and no one knew that he had this kind of direction in him, because, Jordan Peele and John Krasinski, I want to compare him for a second. No one knew that they could direct a film this well, and especially a horror film, because horror films are kind of hard to get right. But he did it, and I was blown away by the result. It just worked on so many different levels. It's a very silent film, because they're not allowed to talk. That's why it's called A Quiet Place. And the ending, when John Krasinski's character dies, is just very sad. You can't really cry about it, because it's just, you don't want the alien, I guess, to come after you. I guess it's kind of an alien monster. Emily Blunt, though, she was fantastic in this film. It's going in the amazing tier. I love it a lot. Get Out, come on. Get Out is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. I think it might be my favorite of all time. I know that's a little weird to say, but it's one of the first, horror movies that I, watched to get right into horror, because I used to be a big horror wuss, but this one kind of opened the genre up to me, and it showed like horror movies aren't that scary. This one especially, it's not that scary, but kind of like the idea behind it is scary. This is Jordan Peele's directorial debut of a horror movie, and he knocked it out of the park. I think this is probably one of the best directorial debuts for like a horror movie of all time, I think. Daniel Kaluuya did such a great job. Daniel Kaluuya and him just are such a great pair. I hope that Daniel Kaluuya is in Jordan Peele's next film, because he was also in Nope, and he was literally my favorite part in Nope. Keke Palmer came in second place, but Daniel Kaluuya is such a great actor. So he's so subtle with his acting, but it works so well. Get Out is going in the amazing tier. Next up, we have two Scream films. We got Scream 2 and Scream 4. Scream 2, you know, it's a big step down from the first one, but that's to be expected because Scream 1 is a classic. Some people think Scream 2 is also a classic. I think Scream 2 is very good. I still do have a couple of issues with it. As a killer opening, though, I really did love that opening. I feel like the killers at the end, I just did not care. I really didn't care about them. And the whole story overall just wasn't as good as the first, but it's still a good film. Putting in good tier. Scream 4 is next. You know, I have a lot of fun with Scream 4. It kind of reinvented the whole franchise, came many years after Scream 3. And, you know, the cast is great. Emma Roberts was easily the best part of the movie, and I just have a fun time with its kills. You know, the final act is a lot of fun in this one. So Scream 4, I'll put that one in the great tier. Next up is Midsommar from Ari Aster. I have a lot to really say about this one, but I'll try to keep it short. Florence Pugh, though, gives a fantastic performance. You know, she gives a great performance in everything that she does. But, you know, the whole story around this one, it just was too weird for me. Hereditary worked because I mean, Hereditary is also very weird, but it's kind of like grounded in a way. This was just totally off the rails. It was so slow, kind of boring in parts. You know, it had a lot of shock value, especially when they're like jumping off the cliff and all that, getting a mallet to the head. But other than that, I really did like the costumes too, but it's just one of those things that just, it's like a cult movie, and I don't care about cult movies. I just found it a little too disturbing for me personally. And as I said, it's very boring. I heard there's like a director's cut, and I was like, I couldn't take 5 more minutes of this movie. It's just not for me. But still, you know, I can respect it, so I'm going to put it in the okay tier. Next up is A Quiet Place Part 2. This one's with Cillian Murphy. And, you know, A Quiet Place Part 2, it was hard for John Krasinski probably to make another A Quiet Place movie and make it as good as the first one, but I think he almost made it as good as the first one. I think this one is also pretty amazing, and I really do love every single scene in this one. It kind of ups the action in this one because I think they had a bigger budget, and I really love Cillian Murphy's character and what Emily Blunt went through in this one. And there's one scene where the little boy, I forget his name, he got hit with a bear trap. That was just stressful because you gotta stay quiet during that. Very stressful movies, Quiet Place movies, because you gotta stay quiet. I would never survive. I would probably be the first one dead. But A Quiet Place 2, going in the amazing tier. The original Halloween is next. This is kind of a hot take for me, I guess, but I don't think the original Halloween is like an amazing movie, but I've only watched it like twice. Maybe I'll go back and watch it again. But, you know, I try to give movies a couple of chances, but I still think this one's great. I just wasn't, you know, maybe it's because I heard a lot of people talking about it. They're like, it's a classic, it's so great. I mean, it is pretty great, but it's not really like a phenomenal horror movie, in my opinion. I didn't really enjoy it as much as I wanted to. The performances are pretty good. Jamie Lee Curtis, it's awesome in this one, but there wasn't a lot of, you know, kills, I would say. It took a while to get there, so Halloween, going in the great tier. Next up, we got Hereditary. This is an Ari Aster film that I think is one of the best in probably the last 10 years of horror movies. And he does a lot right in this one. It traumatized the hell out of me when I first watched it because there's so many just scary scenes in it for me personally, especially when, you know, the little girl, I always forget their characters' names because I haven't watched it in a while because it scares me to death. But when she has a peanut allergy, sticks her head out the window and the pole just decapitates her. Oh my goodness. And her brother just leaves her body in the car. And you just hear Toni Collette just screaming. Oh my goodness, it hurt. It hurt to listen to that. And Toni Collette, she got robbed for a nomination for this movie. She should have won for this movie, but she got robbed for a nomination. It just shows, you know, you can't really get nominated for a horror movie, even if your performance is like one of the best of the year. And I think hers was, because her performance was really legendary for this movie. I think it's one of the best, you know, horror performances in my opinion. And, you know, it's a very scary movie. It's kind of like a cult movie, but it's basically like a, you know, the demon, like Payman, I guess you could say. I'm not really sure what kind of demon Payman is, but it's a very interesting lore. There's a lot of naked bodies in this one. That's maybe something that I would have left out of the movie. I didn't need to see a lot of old naked bodies. It's just a little weird for me. I don't know if Ari Aster likes that, but he's a weird guy. But Hereditary is going in the amazing tier. Scream 5, Scream 5 came a decent amount of time after Scream 4. You know, they tried to reignite the franchise, and guess what? It worked. Scream 5, it was a good movie. I really enjoyed this one when it first came out. I think this was 2022, and I love the cast. Jack Quaid was awesome, and the girl from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I forget her name, but she is terrific in this movie. When she was she kind of became the killer. Amber, that's a character's name. Amber was absolutely terrific, an absolute psycho. But you had Neve come back for this one, Sydney, and that was pretty cool. And then Jenna Ortega, she's a new scream queen kind of for this movie. And, I really just have a lot of fun with it. I think it works a lot. Putting it in the great tier. Next up, Doctor Sleep. I'll do The Shining and Doctor Sleep together, I guess, because they're kind of like right by each other. We'll talk about The Shining first. I think The Shining is my second favorite horror movie of all time. It's kind of an interesting story with this one because I'm a big Stephen King fan. I have like 15 of his books. I haven't read all of them yet. I just like to collect them and, read them later in my life, hopefully, but I've read a couple of them. And The Shining is one that I've read. The Doctor Sleep book is one that I read. I enjoy them both a lot. And The Shining as a book is like so good. I think it's one of my favorite books of all time. And I watched the movie right after I read the book, and it was totally different, and it caught me off guard. I didn't really like the movie that much because I was kind of just basing it off the book. But then like a year later, I rewatched the movie with no opinions before I went in. I didn't really think about the book. I just thought of it like as an original movie. And I was just blown away by what Stanley Kubrick was able to do. Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, she was amazing. She got mistreated on set, which is very sad that happened. I think she did a great job though. But this is one of those horror films where it's so psychological, so interesting. I think you should just take it as like an original film. Don't even try to compare it to the book. It's kind of interesting how Stanley Kubrick went for a totally different idea. But, I kind of get it. He just wanted like his own thing. But still, I think it's my second favorite horror movie of all time. I love it a lot. So it's going in the amazing tier. Dr. Sleep, I'll talk about this one. This one is from Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan is one of the masters of horror, I could say, of all time. After all the Netflix shows that he's done in this movie, I think that we could confidently say that he's one of the masters of the horror genre. I think he's going to stop doing horror for a little bit because I think he said he's going to do the Doctor Sleep series for Amazon. So I guess he's a pretty big Stephen King fan, which is kind of awesome to see. Some people like adapting his work in good ways. Some people don't like adapting it in good ways. But Doctor Sleep, I read that book in like 3 days. I love Doctor Sleep, the book, more than the Shining book, I think. I don't know if that's just me being like weird, but I thought Doctor Sleep was better than The Shining as a book. The movie was a great adaptation. I love the cast. Rebecca Ferguson was absolutely amazing. Ewan McGregor, oh my goodness, Ewan McGregor was so good in this one. I just love the whole story of Doctor Sleep and how it kind of goes back to the Overlook Hotel and all that. It's so psychological, The Shining and Doctor Sleep, some of my favorite horror movies. I think Doctor Sleep gets better every time, especially if you watch them both back to back. So Doctor Sleep is going in the amazing tier. Next up is Scream 6, our newest Scream film, just came out last year. This one was totally killer. I love this one a lot. I love how they moved it to the New York setting so they could do a lot more with that, and they did. I love the sequence when they had the ladder in between the two apartment buildings. Such a simple sequence with just, one prop, just being the ladder, and they're just trying to go across it to the other apartment building. So simple, but so well executed. And then everything on the train was very good. I've been thinking about it. I'm kind of disappointed with the killers, but I really did like the movie a lot, and I feel like it's very, these two kind of newer Scream movies are very rewatchable. I'm interested to see what they do with Scream 7, because I'm wondering if the older sister is going to be the new killer, because she has some evil instinct in her, we saw. It would be interesting to see if that happens, because I think Scream 7 will be the last one, because they're doing like a trilogy. But Scream 6 is going in the great tier. Next up is Us. This is from Jordan Peele. I will say that this one disappointed me a lot, because this one has a killer trailer. Oh my god, the trailer was so good for this one. I remember when it came out on like Christmas Day. Such a good trailer. I wasn't blown away by this one, because this one didn't make a lot of sense for me. Because you kind of have like the tethered, you have a copy of everyone underground. They like eat rabbits, and I was just a little confused by how do you have all these copies of people underground just living there and no one knows. It doesn't really make a lot of sense for me. I really like the cast though. Winston Duke was hilarious in this one. But, it just had a lot of open gaps to the story, I'd say. I think this one was really half-baked for Jordan Peele. And it could have, I wish it had a little bit more horror elements in it, but I still think it's good. It's just not great. It's disappointing. Beau is Afraid. This is another new one, and this one was a long Ari Aster film. Didn't really feel like a horror, kind of felt like a thriller. And I gotta say, for like the first half of the film, I thought it was great, and I thought it was getting to that amazing tier. But the second half really, really disappointed me what they were doing, and the ending was horrendous in my opinion. I hated the ending and what Ari Aster went with that. It just really didn't. I didn't like it. There was a giant penis monster too that was just a puppet. It was kind of odd what they were trying to do with that. But the first half was like really interesting, I would say, really psychological. I liked it a lot. I like everything. I liked a lot until they got to the play, and then after that, I think it just went downhill. It was cool to see a Bill Hader cameo too in this. That was very interesting. But yeah, I thought this one was a little too long, and just the last half just fell off a cliff. I still say it's good, just not great. Happy Death Day 1 and 2, and then we got Freaky, some Blumhouse movies. I love to see Blumhouse. Happy Death Day 1 and 2, we'll go over first. Happy Death Day 1, very good, kind of like original horror flick. I just love the whole premise of it. I like the whole romance story in it too. You know, I always do love these kind of Groundhog Day movies. I know they're, you know, kind of overdone in a sense, but I just think they're really fun. You know, you try the day over and over again. You try different things. You just do the most ballistic things ever. She walks around nude on campus in one of the days. It's a very interesting movie. I like the ending a lot. Happy Death Day 1 going in the good tier. Happy Death Day 2 on the other hand, it didn't work for me a whole lot. I felt like it was just a lot of the same thing, but some of the new stuff just didn't really work. I thought the cast was, you know, I didn't think they cared for it as much as the first one. So, I mean, I'll still put it in the okay tier. I had a decent amount of fun with it. I just thought that the story just wasn't as great. Freaky, talk about a stellar cast. Vince Vaughn was terrific. Some of the best I've seen Vince Vaughn in the last 10 years. He was just acting like a teenage girl. It was hilarious. I remember seeing this one in theaters. I could hardly find it in any theaters by me because it was like in the middle of COVID. I found it in a very small theater, and I saw it with my friend. It was such an unforgettable experience because we, you know, it was coming out at that time. You didn't have many movies coming out, and this one was just solely, it was so fun. It was a freaky movie, but it was really fun. Blumhouse makes some really fun horror movies. I'm waiting for a Freaky 2 and a Happy Death Day 3. I don't think it's going to happen, sadly, but a Freaky 2 would be so fun. I would love it. But Freaky, you know, I'm going to put Freaky in the great tier. I've been kind of thinking about it. I think it just gets better each time. Next up, we got The Witch. This is Robert Eggers, and this one has Anya Taylor-Joy. I watched this for the first time last year, and I was not blown away by it. Some people are really blown away by it. I know it has some great themes in it. I felt like it was a little too slow for me. The goat was absolutely terrifying though, especially when it got on its hind legs. I was like, what the heck is going on? I feel like a real big issue with this one is I had to watch it with subtitles. You know, I couldn't understand their accent very well. That sometimes happens with these kind of movies, but you know, I felt like the story didn't really latch on to me until like the second half. The first half was really slow for me, but I love Anya Taylor-Joy and what she does. Her acting is just so amazing. So I'm still going to put it in the good tier. I think it's pretty good. Next up is X. X came out in 2021, I think. This is Ty West. He also did Pearl, and then he's doing Maxine. So that's going to be cool, kind of like a trilogy. And X is a very interesting film that I wasn't prepared with when I saw it. It's really good, and I loved Mia Goth's performance in here. It's a very creepy film, a very like, I mean, I wouldn't say, you know, uncomfortable film, maybe in a couple of moments, because that's like the subject that they're going for. Jenna Ortega had a terrific moment in this where she screams so loud. Her scream was great. That's a true horror scream right there. Mia Goth absolutely killed it in the final act. Kid Cudi was in this too. Come on, Kid Cudi was awesome in this movie. This one has a lot of memorable moments. I haven't gone back to it in a while, but I really want to watch it again. I want to watch the, you know, the Ty West trilogy again. If they all went to theaters, I would watch like a triple feature. That seems really fun. X I would put in the great tier. Next up, we got, I'll do Pearl next because we just said X. Pearl's just right here. Pearl was really cool. This is kind of takes place way before X. It tells the story of the old lady in X whose name is Pearl. Mia Goth did basically this role in X and her own role, Maxine, because it was interesting. I learned that after I watched the movie that she played the old lady Pearl with a lot of makeup on and played Maxine. That was really cool. I like that a lot. Now she's back in Pearl playing the young Pearl. And this one kind of made me uncomfortable too at a couple moments, but David Cornsweet is also in this, our new Superman. So that's very cool. I didn't get to see this in theaters, sadly, because it wasn't playing. Kind of weird how X played in my theaters, but Pearl didn't. Kind of disappointing, but I saw this one on digital and I had a lot of fun with it. I don't think it's as good as X, but maybe if I rewatch it, I will think it's as good as X. I just love the style, love the costumes, love the production design of this movie. It just looked really good. Everything was really vibrant, and the ending was very horrifying. Pearl is a very messed up girl, I'll say that. She just wants to be a star, though. Come on, just let her be a star. That scene lives rent free, and I think everyone's head. You know, it was a very big TikTok trend. She just wants to be a star. I mean, that scene is legendary. So Pearl, I'll put in the good tier. Next up is The Black Phone. I forget if this came out in 2022 or 2021. I think it was 2022. This one was one of the most surprising movies of the year it came out. I was just kind of blown away by what they were able to do with this movie. Not only because it's a cool original idea, but the cast did an amazing job. I forget the two kids in it, but the one girl was amazing in it. And the one boy who's going to be in the new How to Train Your Dragon live action, he was really great. And Ethan Hawke as like the grabber, so terrifying, so menacing. Loved him. Scott Derrickson actually directed this, and he directed Doctor Strange. I'm a big Doctor Strange fan, and I'm a big fan of this movie. So Scott Derrickson, I think he's kind of a master of horror in a way. I can't wait to see what his next film is, because I think he is making a new film. I forget what it is, but this one was such a great surprise. I loved every single moment in it. It went on for maybe like 15 minutes too long for me. I think you could have cut a little bit from it, but I loved the horror aspect of it. I loved the final like 30 minutes of the film. I thought that was really cool. And I thought just Ethan Hawke as the grabber was really cool. I liked that a lot. And you know, this one, I had a big crowd when I watched it. Everyone reacted a lot to specific scenes. It was a great theater movie. I liked it a lot, so I'm putting The Black One in the great tier. Next up, we got Life. Life is one that I kind of blind bought, you know, online. I saw a lot of people didn't like it, which was very interesting. The cast got me very intrigued. I think I bought it on Black Friday for like $10. I popped it in like a year or two ago, and I really enjoyed this one. You know, it's very basic. You know, the story, the script is very kind of cliche, but you know, the kind of like the horror element of it with the science fiction just gets me. Anytime you got horror and sci-fi, it really does get me. And this kind of goo / matter, I guess you'd call it Venom matter. Everyone thought this was like a prequel to Venom, which was kind of funny. It was scary to see this kind of matter just take over like this whole ship of a crew. I forget the cast of this one, but it's absolutely stacked. You got Ryan Reynolds, Rebecca Ferguson, I think, is in this, and then you got a lot of other famous people that I forget because I just can't remember. But the ending was also very shocking to me. I love the ending a lot. I just think that this one worked a lot. I love the cinematography of this one, and I just thought it was a very cool movie. I mean, a lot of people don't like it, but I thought it was cool, so I'm putting it in the great tier. Next up, we got It Chapter 2 and It Chapter 1. Let's talk about It Chapter 1 first. It Chapter 1 was actually the first rated R horror movie that I saw in theaters. Saw it with a couple of friends, and it did not disappoint. This one made a lot of money when it first came out, and I think it is one of the best Stephen King adaptations. I saw it with a packed house, and man, that theater was electric. I remember it a lot because it was my first rated R movie. Just so many different scenes from here. Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise will go down as one of the best like horror castings and horror performances ever, I think. Everyone in the Loser Club did a great job with their performances, and you know, Andy Muschietti did a great job directing. He just directed The Flash. That one just didn't do well. I kind of dislike it every day that I think about it, but the It movies were really great. The direction here was stellar. The scares, the gore, all that was pretty stellar. So It Chapter 1, I'm going to put that in the great tier. It Chapter 2, on the other hand, I think, you know, Andy Muschietti was trying to juggle a little too much, because the back of the It book, you know, it focused on the adults. It's a lot to focus on. It's like, and this one came in like 2 hours and 40 minutes, and I don't think it covered enough. I think it went on a little too fast. Some scenes were a little too slow. And sometimes I felt like I really enjoyed it. Sometimes I felt like I was a little bit bored. But they absolutely got down the adult cast really, really well. You had Bill Hader in here. You had Jessica Chastain in here. She was fantastic. James McAvoy was in here. So great. I love the adult cast a lot. But yeah, the scares worked for me. But I thought that, you know, what they were trying to do with the runtime and all that and try to tell this story just didn't work. So It Chapter 2... it's either okay or good. I will put it chapter 2 in the good tier. I have a guilty pleasure fun with it. Next up, is this The First Nun? I'm not going to talk about this one for a while. It's really boring, and the scares don't work. It's going in the terrible tier. Annihilation is actually a very interesting one. This one has actually a pretty stacked cast. Natalie Portman is the lead of this one. I guess you could say Oscar Isaac is also kind of a lead. This one confused the hell out of me when I first watched. The ending is so confusing. If you go into this for the first time, just be prepared. The ending is absolutely comes out of nowhere. It's absolutely insane. It has a very scary moment though with some kind of like a bear. That scene scared the heck out of me. And then you kind of see one scene where they're looking at a video of someone's insides getting cut open, and there's like worms inside their body. It was it's a trippy movie. It's a weird movie, but it was kind of a great science fiction horror movie. I really do love those. And it just didn't make no sense at the end. I was really confused, but I was confused in a good way. Let's just say that. It's going in the great tier. Next up is the Conjuring movies. Let's go in order. The Conjuring 1, it's a great horror film. James Wan did an excellent job on here. It's going in the great tier. Conjuring 2, not as great. Still had some great scares. I liked it a lot. Going in the good tier. Conjuring 3, I like this more than other people. I don't think it's great though. I feel like this one has a lot of cool scares in it. The story is pretty weak though, but I did like the cinematography and all that, so I'm going to put it in the okay tier. Next up, let's do the new trilogy of the Halloween movies. Halloween 2018 blew me away. I didn't get to watch it in theaters because I wasn't old enough and I was a little wuss for horror movies, but it was so cool to see Jamie Lee Curtis back, and Michael Myers went on a rampage in this one. It was just so cool. This one made a lot of money because, you know, Universal actually marketed the movie well and put it in theaters. And I just dug the whole movie. The ending was really great. I don't have much to say about it. It's just a great film. Halloween Kills. I have a lot of fun with Halloween Kills. I'll say that. A lot of people hate it, but I have a lot of fun with Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends are when Universal really effed up. They started to put them day and day on Peacock, so they just started to make less and less money. Halloween 2018 made so much money, but these two did not make a lot of money. Halloween Kills I mostly have fun with because it's basically in the name. It's just Michael Myers going on a rampage or killing everyone on Halloween. And it's just a crazy movie, you know, and you had this like brawl in the street where everyone's trying to kill him and he just kills everyone else. He's kind of indestructible. He's like an alien. Yeah, I think that was just really fun for me, and the theater experience was pretty fun. So I'm still putting it in the good tier. Halloween Ends, on the other hand, Halloween Ends was so disappointing. I don't know what their idea here was. This one, the Halloween Ends felt like a start to a new trilogy. It didn't feel like an end to a trilogy because they tried to add like a new character to take over the mantle of Michael Myers. Didn't make much sense. Jamie Lee Curtis kind of won though, but in a really unsatisfying way, I would say. So Halloween Ends sadly is going in the bad tier. Next up is Prometheus. Prometheus is a very cool film. I was kind of scared from it when I first watched it a couple years ago because I never saw an alien movie. This was the first alien movie I ever watched, and seeing the alien in that lady's stomach, like she had to like tear it out, that actually freaked me out a lot. I was not prepared for that scene, but the effects in this movie were really cool. I love the cinematography of this one. I love the cast a lot, but I haven't seen it in a while, so I don't really have too much to say. I'm either putting it in the good tier or the great tier. I think I'm going to put it in the great tier because I love the technical elements of this one. Next up is The Cabin in the Woods. I'm going to say a hot take. I've only seen it once, but I don't really enjoy it as much as other people. A lot of people love it because it's a cool original story, has a really cool cast, but I feel like I just didn't get what was going on half the time. I felt like, you know, with all those different monsters underground, and you know what the secret laboratory was doing was, I mean, kind of interesting, but I just didn't really care too much. I mean, I put it in the okay tier. I'm not the biggest fan of it. It was kind of cool to see the scene where every single elevator opened and these monsters just went insane. I thought that was cool. Next up, we got the Pet Sematary remake with Jason Clarke. You know, I haven't seen the original Pet Sematary, but I don't think that they can make a Pet Sematary movie actually work. Pet Sematary was actually the first Stephen King book that I've ever read, and I really did enjoy that book a lot. It's one of my favorite, you know, books of all time now because of how seamless that book was. It's a very scary book. I read it in freshman year of high school, and I was actually very scared of it. And the movie, I watched this movie right after because I was like, oh, new Pet Sematary movie. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I just read the book. And it was so disappointing because they changed so much, and it was so boring. It wasn't scary at all. I don't think that they can make a Pet Sematary adaptation work, and they keep trying. They tried with a new Paramount movie. It didn't work at all. So Pet Sematary, it's going in the terrible tier. Next up is Alien Covenant. I watched this one pretty soon after Prometheus. And I have a very weird way of watching alien movies because I watched Prometheus, Covenant, and then I watched the original Alien just a couple days ago for the first time. We'll get to that one. But from Covenant was disappointing. It was worse than Prometheus, only because I felt like they didn't know what to do with this one, and they kind of left it on a cliffhanger, and supposedly they're not going to make a new one going after this one. So I was a little disappointed by that. Some of the action's very cool, but I think it just took too long to get there. So Alien Covenant going in the good tier. Next up, we got Infinity Pool. This one just released this year, and this is a really messed up movie. I was not prepared when I entered this movie. It's from one of the Cronenbergs. I've never seen a Cronenberg movie before this one, but it's a weird movie. I was just going to it because Mia Goth was in it and a Skarsgård was in it. Mia Goth gave an excellent performance, a very odd performance. And, I remember seeing the red carpet where one of the Skarsgårds, I forget who it is. I think it's Alexander Skarsgård in this one. He has a dog collar on him and Mia Goth is like walking like a dog. It was a really funny moment. But the movie as a whole was disappointing. I liked some moments, but I felt like the story, kind of like the idea of everything in this movie, I don't really want to spoil it because it's very interesting. The idea was really interesting. The execution was not done well. I didn't like the execution or the second half. The first half was really cool. I think the second half really let me down. But overall, I think it's still okay. I wouldn't say it's bad. It has a very interesting scene in the middle. I'm not going to say what that is, but you could just get prepared for it. But it's still going in the okay tier. I just didn't like the execution of the idea. Next up is Shaun of the Dead, Edgar Wright. I kind of say this is a horror film because it has zombies in it. This is an absolutely delight of a film. Simon Pegg did an excellent job. I haven't seen this one in a while, but I really want to rewatch it. Edgar Wright's films are really good. We'll get to one I don't like that much, but this one's going in the great tier. Next up, we got The Visit. This is the M. Night Shyamalan kind of movie where the grandparents are like creepy weirdos, and this is kind of like a found footage film. This one took me off guard when I first watched it. I was absolutely terrified when you have that scene where the grandma is like absolutely butt naked, just scratching on the wall. I was like, what the hell is wrong with that lady? It was creepy. I wouldn't ever want to envision that in my life. And I was just a little weirded out by it. The idea was really cool though. I didn't really understand the supernatural element of it. I don't think he really explained that because the grandparents that they're visiting and the weird ones aren't their real grandparents. Those are dead. They're like in a dumpster. And these new ones, I guess they're kind of like just weird aliens, I guess, or just people with really weird issues. I forget if you really explain that because I haven't watched the movie in a couple years. But I really did like the cast in this one. As I said, it creeped me out a lot. There's some very effective jump scares. You can get some really effective jump scares in a found footage film, and I think M. Night did a great job. M. Night is very hit and miss for me on horror movies and movies in general. But The Visit, I think, landed very good for me, so I'm going to put it in the good tier. Next up, we got Malignant. I'm going to have a hot take. I did not like Malignant. I just didn't really care for it. I thought it was a little weird for me. I liked kind of like the, what they're going for. It's kind of like two people controlling this one body. I just didn't really care for the story, and I thought it was a little cheap in my opinion. So Malignant, I'll put in the bad tier. Overlord was a huge surprise for me. This is like kind of like a Nazi zombie movie, I would say. That's how I would describe it. It's really cool. It takes place during the war. And, you just have a lot of fun with this one. So I'm going to put Overlord in the good tier. Next up is Ready or Not. This one was a delightful surprise. If you talk to anyone who's seen this movie, they'll probably like it. It's so cool. And, just the premise of it being ready or not. And everyone's just trying to kill this girl. And that's kind of like the premise of the game. Like, it's a real kind of game. It's not one of those cheap kid games. They're actually playing to kill her. And that was so cool to see her just running for her life and, killing everyone kind of on accident in some places, but doing it on purpose in other places. She's just running around in her wedding dress. It's off the walls crazy, but I think it works a lot. And the production design of this movie was killer. Costumes were killer. So it's going in the good tier. Next up, we got Insidious The Red Door and Insidious the first one. I guess I only put the first two on here. The Red Door, really disappointing film for me this year. I didn't care for it, and I just felt the story was really weak. It was a bad ending. I'm going to put it in the bad tier. Next up, Insidious the first one. I don't know. I'm not a big Insidious fan in general. So, I mean, some of the jump scares really worked for me in this one. The camera movement really worked a lot. But overall, this film disappointed me, so I'm going to put it in the okay tier. Next up, we got The Thing. I've talked to a lot of people that think this is one of the best horror movies of all time. I really do love the practical effects in this one. I'll say that. The story worked a lot for me. Just sometimes the execution, and it did feel a little bit long for me. That didn't work too much for me. But I really did like the story and like the kind of like the mystery and the practical elements of, that famous scene where, that big head comes out from that guy's chest. That's a big practical element. I like that a lot. So the thing I'll still put in the grade tier. It's not one of my favorites. Next up, we got Brahms the Boy and Brahms the Boy 2. Some of my least favorite horror movies of all time. I just don't know how these got made. I don't like them at all. The Brahms the Boy number 1. Let's just say that Brahms the Boy is a real menace to society of a character. I don't know how anyone could ever trust this little doll. But the Boy 1 goes in the bad tier, and the Boy 2 goes in the terrible tier. One of the worst horror movies and movies in general that I think I've ever seen. Next up, we got The Night House. This one was also a very big surprise for me. The idea behind it is so interesting, I don't really want to give it away. And it just works a lot on like a fear factor and psychological element factor. And I love the performance here. I really did think that this film was a great surprise. I think this one came on 2020, so we weren't getting a lot of movies. And this one just worked a lot. And I love the use of red in this film. There's a lot of red. It's a very interesting mystery. And, by the end, you don't really get a lot of answers, which is kind of a complaint for me. I wish we got a little bit more answers, but I still thought it was executed very well. The direction is stellar in that movie. Next up, we got Barbarian. Barbarian came out a year ago. This movie was absolutely insane. Everyone was raving about this one when it came out. It was a very popular movie. And it really did work good. Bill Skarsgård in this one just for a little bit, and then you have this little house, and underground there's like a huge tunnel system leading way underground. And then there's like this big tall lady, I guess, and she acts like a baby, and she just comes out here. It's a very big jump scare. It got me so bad. It's probably one of the biggest jump scares that ever got me, when this lady just comes out of nowhere, fully naked, and just starts smashing Bill Skarsgård's head against the wall. One of the most interesting movies I've ever seen, and the execution was crazy. The idea behind it was insane. The flashback was absolutely kind of terrifying and disgusting of what the guy did in the flashback to these girls. But this movie was so interesting. I really want a sequel to this though, to see where it kind of goes. I wish we got a little bit more answers of what happened and how this all happened. But I thought this was a really cool original horror flick, so it's going in the good tier. We're getting filled up here. We got a little bit more to go. We're going to go Smile next. This also came out last year. The marketing was some of the best marketing I think I've ever seen for a movie. You had those people just standing on the street, smiling like the people in the film. People in the baseball games smiling like that. And you've had people try to replicate this, but this was like one of its own. They did it for the first time ever, and it was so famous. You had people talking about it so much. This one made so much money. I think it only had like an $18 million budget. And it made a lot. I'm not sure how much it made. I think it made 200 million worldwide. I might be totally off, somewhere in that realm. But this one was also very surprising. I thought it was going to be a lot better. But the more I think about it, the more I kind of like the whole idea. We wish we got a little bit more answers in the film, and the ending didn't leave me satisfied. But we are getting a sequel, so that might help me with my dislike for the ending of the first one. But let me just say, the ending of this one has a very shocking moment where it's just like this creature, I guess a smile creature, just opens its mouth so huge and just swallows this person kind of whole. It's a very scary scene. The score during that scene creeped me out so much. Wasn't prepared for it. The smile that they go for is absolutely terrifying. I don't know who made up that weird smile. So jump scares really worked a lot. I jumped a lot of this movie. So I'd still put it in the good tier. Next up is Last Night in Soho. I was so excited to watch this movie because Edgar Wright, Anya Taylor-Joy, and this one just disappointed me. I wish this one was so much better. I wouldn't say it's bad, but I just wish it worked so much better. The execution was just handled so poorly. The mystery just wasn't great either. I felt like the first half was really on to something really cool. The second half, though, it just left me so disappointed. The ending left me so disappointed. Anya Taylor-Joy wasn't even the main star of the film, I would say. And I guess the twist, like 30 minutes into the film, that's how you know the idea wasn't just that great. The production design and costumes were excellent, and the soundtrack was really good. But other than that, I just didn't like it. I mean, I saw it twice in cinemas to see if I would have liked it more, but it just didn't work for me. Monster House is a classic horror movie. Monster House, I watched this a lot in class growing up. I still watch it almost every year. It's just such a simple animated film, like only an hour and a half, but it works so well. It's just a monster coming to life, It's scary, freaky, and it just works a lot. So Monster House, I'm gonna put Monster House in the great tier. I think it's a great one. Annabelle, we have the first Annabelle and the first Saw. That's an interesting one. Annabelle number 1 didn't really work too well for me in a sense. I wish it worked a lot more, but some scenes were great. I was gonna say that it opened really good. I felt like the first 20 minutes was really good. The rest after that just went downhill. So Annabelle number 1, I'd put it in the okay tier. Saw 1 though, I felt like this is one of the best original kind of movies. You know, they kind of go all the way downhill after this. Saw 10 though kind of brought it back up. I think Saw 10 is the second best, but Saw 1 is such an interesting idea. Alien is our last one. I first watched this one just a couple days ago. I was blown away. It's a masterpiece, almost a perfect film in my opinion. It's everything that I wanted. It's a sci-fi mixed with horror, and you know, that just makes me so happy. A xenomorph is absolutely terrifying. I wasn't prepared for the xenomorph. I just love the whole feel of the movie. Ridley Scott is kind of unmatched for a director nowadays. He directed some bad films, but he really goes out of his way and directs a good film. And when he does it, it turns out really great. So Alien going in the amazing tier. Now let's rank them all. We're gonna have a tough time when we get to the great tier, but the terrible tier, I am actually gonna keep it like that. I feel like that works. Bad tier. We can keep Brahms the Boy at the bottom, Scream 3 at top. And then we're going to keep Halloween Ends above Malignant. I feel like that works a lot. I'll take Malignant over Insidious the Red Door any day. The okay tier, I'm going to put the Cabin in the Woods second. Happy Death Day 2. Midsommar, I'm going to put in the fourth tier. Conjuring 3. And then we're going to put Annabelle at the last spot. Last Night in Soho and Insidious. Actually, I'll put Insidious over Midsommar. Last Night in Soho is not last because I still love the production design. The good tier, it's when we start getting to a decent amount of movies here, so it's going to be kind of hard to rank these. But Scream 2, I think Scream 2 I'll leave at the top. Happy Death Day I'll put in second. I'm just going off, you know, fast opinion on this one. And the bottom I'd say Halloween Kills, and then Alien Covenant. Yeah, Alien Covenant, and then I would go Smile, and then I would probably go Beau's Afraid, put him a little down there. I'd probably put Overlord at the bottom too, just a little bit, but I'd probably put Barbarian over that. Barbarian can go over Beau's Afraid. Conjuring 2 will go over Barbarian, and then It Chapter 2, just because I like the cast a lot, it's going to go above those two, and Pearl will go above The Witch. I feel like that good tier looks pretty great. Now we got the top of the great tier. The great tier has a lot of movies on here. And, you know, I don't really know where to start on here. But I will say Halloween, the original Halloween, does deserve to go in that first spot. Actually, no. I like Halloween 2018 more than the original. It's a hot take, but I do love it a lot. Put The Conjuring 1 up there. And then I will put It Chapter 1 also up there with Scream 4. Actually, I want to put The Thing somewhere up there. I'll put The Thing there, and I'll put Scream there. The bottom, let's put the bottom. I'll put Life at the bottom. I'll put The Black Phone Afterlife. I feel like that makes a lot of sense. If I can move it, then The Night House I'd put there. Saw I would probably put right there. I do like these Scream movies a lot. And then I'd probably put, I don't know, I'd probably put Freaky somewhere down there. And then I would probably put Ready or Not above these films just a little bit. Shaun of the Dead can go somewhere close to the top. I love that movie. And then I'll put that Monster House just above Bones and All because I think it's a little bit stronger. And I'll put Annihilation over X. And I feel like the great tier looks pretty good. It's hard to be happy with a tier that has that many movies, but I still agree with most of that. The amazing tier is kind of like some of my favorite horror movies of all time, and just movies that I rewatch a lot every Halloween. And probably my favorite horror movie of all time probably still goes to Get Out, even though it's not really a full-fledged horror movie. Then I go The Shining, and then I'd go Scream 1, and then after that I'd probably go Alien. And then I'd probably go I'd go Hereditary and then Doctor Sleep. And then I would go A Quiet Place 1, Nope, and then A Quiet Place 2. I really do like that ranking. This is just a random tier list that I found, and it has a decent amount of movies on there. But as I said, leave your favorite horror movies in the comments down below. Make sure you leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Have a happy Halloween, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.